Let me pivot to Minnesota. Tom Homan on the ground this morning in Minneapolis explaining what he's doing there. Let me play for you all a clip.
In my meetings with folks so far, and most important, the governor and the AG, the Mayor Fry, we didn't agree on everything. I didn't expect to agree on anything. I've heard many people want to know why we're talking to people who they don't consider friends in administration. Bottom line is you can't fix problems if you don't have discussions. I didn't come to Minnesota for photo ops or headlines. You haven't seen me. I came here to seek solutions, and that's what we're going to do. And we've come a long way, and we got some good wins for the people of Minnesota, I think, and for the administration and for the safety security of this city.
Chris DeGaulle, I've known Tom Homan a long time. That wasn't the Tom Homan that I know. Tom Homan is he is a no-nonsense kind of guy, a tell it like it is kind of guy. That was the measured, taking the temperature down, the adults are in the room, Tom Homan, right?
Yeah.
But he said something there that I thought was interesting because he's facing a lot of criticism, not he, but the administration from people like Steve Bannon saying that this was a capitulation. What do you think about what they're doing in Minnesota?
I don't agree it's a capitulation. I mean, Tom Homan, if you listen to that entire thing, he said there will be zero tolerance for the behavior that's been displayed toward ICE agents. He reminded everyone that ICE agents are human beings, that they are merely carrying out the law of at least the 6 presidents that he served, and that if you have a problem with the law they're carrying out, go protest Congress, get it out of Minnesota. So I don't know that they've said that they're going to stop doing anything. And in fact, I think the real message could be a problem for Democrats if what Tom Homan said is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt that it is. He said that Ellison, for instance, their attorney general, agreed that they would maintain detentions and hand over criminals to ICE. They would cooperate with ICE at the county level. They wouldn't catch and release as a lot of sanctuary cities do. He said that they all agreed, that being Walz and Fry and Ellison, they all agreed that ICE was, quote, a legitimate agency. Now, Democrats, as you well know, are calling for ICE to be disbanded and defunded and illegitimate and Gestapo and all of this. So I think he's probably put some of the Democrats on defensive now. If that's true, they say they're a legitimate agency and they deserve respect and local law enforcement will work with detainees and ICE. I would be interested to see how the Democrats end up responding to this press conference today.
Well, Elizabeth, I will see how the Democrats respond. But here's the thing. Mayor Fry, prior to Tom coming out this morning, said, quote, Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws. I don't know how you square that circle. The guy's saying, Tom Homan, I came here to take the temperature down, but we got a job to do. It's the law. And Mayor Fry saying, yeah, we're not going to do this. So I just don't see how this ends up fixed.
Yeah. So Monday, Mayor Fry and President Trump supposedly had a conversation, and Mayor Fry posted on X, I spoke with President Trump and will continue to cooperate with state and federal law enforcement. And then Tuesday, he meets with Homan, says we had a productive conversation, but we will not enforce federal immigration law. What obviously happened is he got a lot of blowback from his side of the aisle and from his supporters and from the Democrat Party in general. And I think what the administration is doing is very important and a very good strategic move, because there's 2 things going on. One is they stand in stark contrast to how crazy and unreasonable and, insane and violent the Democrats are looking. And then also they are, I agree with Chris, it's not a capitulation because they are continuing to enforce. They are not pulling back the raids, and they're not capitulating. We're going to have a government shutdown, debate over this as well over the coming days, because the Democrats want to use that to defund DHS in exchange for certain concessions like taking masks off the agents and things like that, and continuing to put them in danger. But what's really going on, and again, I think, like you said, putting the Democrats on the defensive is actually really important, because they're not going to stop. This is life or death for them, literally, because what is going on here is a soft revolution to overturn the 2024 election, an insurrection, if you will, because President Trump, the number one issue, the number one mandate he received from the American people was to secure the border and to remove the 10 plus million people that were let in under the Biden administration across our open border at the time. And that is clearly still, the American people still support that, a majority, because the polling shows that. The issue is what the sanctuary cities and jurisdictions allow state and local authorities to do is basically impeding, these deportation operations. They don't make arrests when things get out of hand. They they have the position that if law enforcement intervenes, it makes it worse. So let them they talk about them like children, like let them get it out of their system. Well, in the meantime, they're standing in the way of ICE removing child rapists and murderers from their streets because the sanctuary city policies protect those people and require ICE to then go in, get warrants and all of that, and with proper procedure, go in and take them. And then there are citizens, there's not only activists, but there's people who live in the neighborhood who are not helping, who are making it harder. And, I think the American people understand what this is all about is that the Democrat, red, blue, poorly run states have lost hundreds of thousands of people to red states. And the result of that is going to be losing seats in the 2030 census and the apportionment that's going to happen after that. And so they need to hold these illegal immigrants there. And it's not about necessarily fraudulent voting and letting the illegals vote when they shouldn't. It's about every resident gets counted in the census, regardless of immigration status. And so keeping them as part of the population is like their backup plan for the exodus that has happened. Definitely here in California, we're projected to lose 4 seats, just not even counting the removal of our illegal immigrant population here, which is substantial.
I love that point. I want to make sure the audience just got what Elizabeth said, because I've talked about a bunch of different things over the months, and I think you connected the dots better than I did. Okay, just stop and listen to what I don't want to put words in Elizabeth's mouth, but this is what I heard, which is so brilliant. The census projections right now for 2030 are that Democrats will lose 9 electoral votes because of the population shift. Okay, so if you're Democrats, you just lost 9 seats. That's a big shift in electoral college, right? So how do you protect yourself? Well, the census doesn't say count citizens, it counts bodies. So what do you want to do? Get more bodies into your state to protect your electoral votes. So brilliant. I'm going to write that one down again. Okay. Emily, here's my live ball to you. I brought this up for 48 hours. I'm going to start with you. I want to go around the horn. Bannon, as I said to Chris DeGaulle, a little critical, saying, you know what, we're capitulating, and Tom, which I don't buy into entirely. But here's what my suggestion is. With the level of calm that Tom Homan did that press conference, President Trump sits down at the Oval Office and says, ladies and gentlemen, my number one job as president is to keep the American people safe. I campaigned on it. I won on it. I've tried to do that in cities throughout the nation. New Orleans, Washington, D.C., Memphis, etc. They've cooperated with federal officials, and we've had a huge amount of success getting criminals out of our communities that weren't legally in this country. Minneapolis elected leadership that doesn't want that to happen. So I'm pulling out all federal resources from Minneapolis, all of it. All federal funding, all federal offices are out of Minneapolis. And Minneapolis can then address all of their concerns to Mayor Jacob Fry if they don't agree with this and go to him. But I'm not going to fight him anymore. If you, Minneapolis, want these policies, that's yours. And make Minneapolis the example to show what happens so that it's not this nebulous thing anymore. What do you think of that, Emily?
I would love to see it. I would also love to see Minnesota cut some of the incentives. I mean, think about the healthcare, things like that going to these illegal aliens. That needs to go. If they don't want federal law enforcement in their state, cut the incentives, and the illegal aliens will leave. I want to go back to Tom Homan's press conference. I was blown away. And my biggest takeaway from his press conference was when he said, I'm not leaving until the job is done. Yes, I know he was talking about Minnesota, but it's clear that he's serious. He's not leaving until the job is done. He's been doing what he's doing for 40 years. He's very serious in his tone. He's very serious about making this country safer again. And I've been watching the mainstream media coverage of Minneapolis all week. And the mainstream media would lead you to believe that this entire country is divided on this issue. And the whole time I've been saying, really, I don't think so at all. Most Americans don't want child molesters or rapists in their communities, okay? Most Americans want safe communities. Most Americans don't want to see people get shot in the streets. Most Americans don't want to see law enforcement be ambushed, doxxed, attacked, have their fingers bitten off, okay? There's a lot of common ground here. And I've been so happy to see the White House, the President, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and Tom Homan all have that same exact common ground, common sense tone. There's a very serious diplomatic tone that Tom Homan took during his press conference. It's been remarkable to see. And it's a massive juxtaposition to the violent rhetoric that leftist politicians in the mainstream media have been using all week about Minnesota.
If you're on a journey to wellness, which you guys know that I have, you're sitting back, you're feeling that you're not waking up rested after a good night's sleep, you're dragging through your days, no motivation, you've got stubborn belly fat. Well, here's the thing. We can find what's ailing you and then get you on a path to wellness. That's right, because Joi Blokes will do just that. They have a testing kit that they can send you. So if you've got that dad bod, brain fog, lack of drive, it doesn't matter. They will send you a lab kit and you will then have a 30 to 60 minute consultation with a licensed clinician who will connect you to what's not working on your body and figure out how to move you forward. So whether it's TRT, peptide therapy, treatments that will get to the root cause of what's ailing you and help you feel stronger, sharper, and more present. So this is even hair loss. They'll figure it all out for just $1 a month. So stop guessing and get on the path to wellness. Get you the answers that you need at joyandblokes.com/Sean. And it's JOIAND Blokes.com/Sean, spelled the right way, SEAN. Joi and Blokes, JOI and Blokes.com/Sean. Use code Sean for 50% off your labs and 20% all of your supplements. That's joyandblokes.com/Sean, code word Sean. Chris Tegal and Elizabeth, just real quickly, do you guys, like, some people have said, Sean, your proposal is insane, it's extreme. Like, I don't know why. I mean, to be honest with you, I just, like I said, call his bluff and say, great, we're out. And I think hold Minneapolis up as an example. I think the opposite. Look at what happened in Washington, D.C. It is a safer, better place because of what President Trump did with the National Guard, whatever, and the federal agents. So do the opposite. Go, great. Let Minneapolis go there because he wants to have his cake and eat it too, Fry. So say, hey, look, you win. We're out. And then let's see how the people of Minneapolis deal with that. Because to Emily's point, you want criminals running around your city and find a haven there? They know that they're going to be fine. So just do you agree with what I'm saying, or no? Or is it nuts?
I don't hate it, except there was a letter that went out.
This is why your HR paperwork is still held up.
No. I think it's a great. I like that little guy, that tiny little twerpy mayor. I just couldn't wish enough ill on someone. But having said all that, there are some huge corporate entities who have co-authored a letter begging for calm. They're not taking a political position, but there are a lot of corporate interests in Minneapolis that are, I mean, there's a lot of our economy that still matters in Minneapolis, and there are a lot of businesses and employees that still matter. So the American citizens, of course, still matter. I agree with you 100%. Get what you elected, and I'm all for it. I would also just say, respectfully to Steve Bannon and others, I don't think this is about immigration at all. I think that's a winner for Donald Trump, a net winner. What I think this is about is the rampant billions of dollars in fraud that the left has successfully gotten us not talking about.
Yes,
I think that's where they win, and that's where we need to get back to.
Yeah, it's funny. Your friend Larry O'Connor had this interesting take on Ilhan Omar, saying, you realize all of this, I mean, the quote winery that she suddenly owns went from being valued at $10 to $18 million, or whatever it is. I get it wrong. And he's like, do you realize how we not talk, like the day that we were supposed to talk about it, suddenly she had an incident. And I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't even think about that. Elizabeth.
That I will just say that press conference. I'll just say nothing more than that strikes me as odd.
It was funny because until Larry today, the last 24 hours, a lot of people are connecting dots for me. And when Larry brought that up and said, "You realize that we were supposed to be talking about Ilhan Omar's like sudden wealth," and the next thing you know, it's, "Oh my God, she has an incident." I was like, "Wow!"
Hey, listen, Tim Walz steps down from his
I know
governor, and then Renee Good the next day.
All right, Elizabeth, I want to tap into your legal skills here. A new video came out of Alex Preddy, the gentleman who was killed by ICE over the weekend. I want to play it for folks of him. What is this, like a week before interacting with federal agents? Let's all take a look at that video. And then I want to break this down with you as a lawyer, not on but just you'll see where I'm going. So let's play it for the audience.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Preddy interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m. We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight.
All right, Elizabeth, let me break out of this real quick. So that has now been confirmed as Alex Preddy by his own family. Okay, so that's not a question anymore. Here he is, I don't know, whatever that is, a week or 10 days before that fateful shooting, where he spits on a federal agent and then smashes the rear of the taillight with his foot. So those are two legal, right? I mean, just let's break this down real quick. Those are both illegal things to do, correct?
Definitely the kicking of the taillight of the car, for sure. The spitting, it looked like he spit at the car, not on an agent. So I don't know what that charge would be.
Okay.
But, yeah.
But okay, so the next question I have for you, because a lot of people are talking about this video, from a legal perspective only, does the fact that Alex Preddy kicked in a taillight, was an agitator, et cetera, have any bearing on the incident that occurred 10 days later? In other words, does it matter that he was, at church 10 days before or kicking in a taillight 10 days before?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't, because the issue about what happened over the weekend was whether there was an imminent threat to the officers to justify the use of force, to under reasonable person standards or under their training. So what happened 10 or 11 or a week before is not relevant in that case. But it is relevant from the perspective of the policies that the Democrats support, which is, you kind of let these low level like vandalism or what happened there where nobody got hurt, or, it was against the police who were, agitating people. So it was the police, the federal agents who provoked Alex, Nurse Preddy to kick the car and spit on them. It was their fault, not his. And so they don't hold these people accountable for their actions. And so, if he had been arrested that day, then he would still be alive today, because he wouldn't necessarily have behaved the way or even been able to attend, the riots and paramilitary operation that they were engaged in over the weekend.
So, Emily, I wanted to break these two things up, because what Elizabeth just described is my, as a layperson, my view. It's like what you did 10 days before doesn't have a bearing on that. But what it does change in my mind is this image of this sainthood that they had, the left had given him, which is he was just this good guy that was out there protesting. In fact, again, it doesn't have any bearing. I still don't think he should have died. I don't argue. I don't want anybody to die that's not lawfully ordered to be killed or in, extenuating circumstances. The point is, though, that like this characterization of him of being this lovely, great person, when in fact he did commit acts of vandalism and go after federal agents is not what the media wants you to see.
Exactly. We're on the same page, Sean. That's exactly what I was going to say. What this video proves is this is not this peaceful First Amendment protester, innocent guy like the mainstream media painted him to be. He was an agitator. He was very violent in these clips. And Tom Homan, once again, in his press conference, touched on how these threats and assaults continue to rise every single day. DHS said threats are up 8,000% against federal law enforcement. The stat from 2025 was that assaults were up 1,000% against law enforcement. And I want to be clear, the reason why so many of these assaults are still happening is because these ICE trackers are still in operation. And as a reporter for Campus Reform, I can tell you I've uncovered quite a few of these websites. It's students, believe it or not, that are running some of them, and a former professor that's running another one of these websites. I just uncovered within the last few weeks that there are students at the University of Chicago, there are students at Northwestern University, Loyola University Chicago that are running these websites that are surveillance tools. They're giving the precise locations of ICE agents. They're giving descriptions of what they're wearing. They're saying the exact vehicles that these ICE agents are driving. There's a former NYU professor. I was the first reporter in the country to find this website, uncover it. He's running this website that uses artificial intelligence and facial recognition technology that allows users to upload a photo, and it gives the ICE agent's name, their place of work, their job title. And then you go over to Reddit and people are uploading photos of these ICE agents, their families, and there's just a massive amount of threats over on Reddit. I hope to see the Department of Justice do everything they possibly can to hold these people accountable. It's insane to me that it's students, college students, who are running some of these websites, especially when you look at our universities and there's so many students that can't even read and do math, yet they're impeding on federal law enforcement and putting these officers in harm's way.
And Sean, I have to point out, it's almost all exclusively lily white people, and that's what makes this a little different. My inclination is to say this reminds me very much of George Floyd, except it lacks one very specific tenet. People of color are not buying into this, and they're not interested in it at all. You cannot get Black Americans or Hispanic Americans animated about this the way a bunch of scrawny, privileged, and or elderly liberals who are all white. They're the only ones that are animated about this. And I think that's notable. They're trying to make this the civil rights era or something. It's not. Black Americans, I believe, as well as all legal citizens of the United States who have come here the right way, I don't think they buy into this for a second or share the outrage that these white activist Soros types are trying to create. I just don't think it's there. I don't think it's real.
Super insightful. I actually totally, now that I think about it, I'm like, you're right. And I'm going to pay a lot more attention to it as I see these riots go down, because you're right. This is them trying to manufacture it. I want to touch on one more thing before we get to winners and losers. Big news over last night about the FBI raiding this Fulton County voting area warehouse where all these ballots were. Fulton County, by the way, admits that 315,000 ballots were not signature ballot verified. Just real quickly, before we get to winners and losers, Elizabeth, I'll ask you, I mean, I don't know whether I should get my hopes up or not. I mean, the FBI is being very quiet about the raid. They're not talking about it. No one seems to know, a lot of speculation. But I'm trying to figure out, like, should I get excited about this? Or is this just a, hey, we want to show you we're doing something?
Yeah, that's a really big issue for me, is getting people's hopes up and like these little teasers, and then either people forget about it or nothing happens. And that has the effect of demoralizing the Republican base, who is so fed up with the idea that every election is rigged and we don't have real elections in our country. And for us in California, it is a huge problem in terms of turnout and getting our voters to even vote at all, but also to vote early, because the too big to rig strategy requires that Republicans get on board with voting early, and even, voting by mail, which there is a huge reluctance to do, and also ballot harvesting. If we don't play their game, like, we cannot win. And so to get to get our voters to really believe in the system, it is very important to uncover and hold accountable anybody who was engaged in election fraud. So I hope that this does result in something and to see it through. But the teasers, like you said, getting people's hopes up and then disappointing them has a real cost when it comes to election time.
Yeah, I think that's, to me, like, I hope this, so someone asked me this morning, like, is this a big deal? And I'm like, yeah, it is, because if we don't make it clear that you will ultimately be held accountable, then they're going to keep doing it. And I'm like, well, Fulton County admits that they didn't follow the procedure. Like, why wouldn't we look into this to prevent it from happening? Never mind looking backwards and saying what really happened, but also just to prevent it from happening again.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.